Hey guys, Jeff here with Passive Income Unlocked. So most of you have probably heard the phrase that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but does that really apply when we're talking about niche sites? So in this video, I want to go over my team's strategy and why we don't always add images to our posts. But before I jump into that, let me first kind of go over the pros and cons of adding images, because there's quite a few. So first, let's just talk about some of the pros, so some of the benefits. What can images do to enhance your articles? So number one, images help to emphasize points. So let's say you have a piece of text, whether it's a paragraph, a sentence, or even just a short phrase. Adding an image can make that piece of text jump out to the reader. Just really helps to illustrate it. So that's a big one. Another one, images help to aid in understanding. And this is kind of where that phrase, a picture's worth 1,000 words, came from. So you can have a huge block of text. I mean, you could have 1,000 words, and it can be tough for somebody to understand what that text is about. But if you have one image that can really illustrate what's in that text, some people are more visual learners and they will understand it much better. Ideally, you have both. You have really strong text and you have a strong image. And when you pair those together, it really enhances the understanding for the user, for the visitor. Another benefit is that images help to break up text. So most of us don't want to look at paragraph after paragraph after paragraph with nothing to break it up. So again, you can use pictures, you can use video, whatever. Anything that's visual will help to break up that text, and that just makes for a better user experience. And speaking of user experience, images help to keep people interested in your content and keep them on your site. That's a big one if you're trying to rank a site, especially a new site. Keeping people on your site as long as possible is big for that. Google definitely likes to see that. And when you have more images in your content, it just helps people engage with your content better because they're not just staring at a block of text and getting bored. They're going to see these images. It's going to keep them engaged, keep them focused, keep them going down the page. So that's a big one. Another benefit, and this one a lot of people don't realize, is that your images can actually rank in Google search. So just like when you go over to Google search and you're going to see all the articles that are ranking, so you try to rank for whatever keyword you're going after, you're going to rank for that in Google search, but you can actually rank for that keyword in Google image search as well. So if you go to Google, google.com, and you click the image tab, you'll see all these images, and whatever you type in the search bar there, you can rank for those terms as well. When people click on those images, they do go over to your site. So it's actually another way to drive traffic to your site. If you look at your analytics, once you've gained some traffic on your site, you'll probably see that you do get some traffic coming from image search as well. In addition, images help to promote sharing on your site. So this is especially important for social media, for social networks. So sites like Pinterest, if you have images within your posts, they're going to be a lot more likely to be shared on those networks. If somebody shares an article on Pinterest and there's no images in it, the image that gets used is just a block of text. I can't remember exactly what it looks like, but it's some default image that doesn't look good at all and it's not going to get shared, right? So, and it's going to be the same for other networks as well, Facebook and whatever. If you have images within your article, within your post, they're going to be a lot more likely to be shared. And once they get shared, they're going to be a lot more likely to be engaged with by other people that see those posts. Then another one, last one on my list here, is that images can actually help you make more money. So a lot of people don't know about this, and this is something I picked up from Mediavine, because Mediavine, and this is kind of going down on a tangent, but Mediavine's the ad network that we use, and they put out a lot of really helpful content on a regular basis. So if you go over to their site, you'll see that they have a blog there. They post a lot of useful information just as far as how ads work and how you can make more money by doing this or that or whatever. And one thing that they mention is that adding more images to your site actually allows for more ad placements on your site. And it also it forces people to scroll a little bit more, which keeps those sticky ads on your page a little bit longer as well. So having images on your site can actually make you more money because it's going to improve your RPMs. So again, that's a big one because most of us are building sites to make money. So adding images can help you make money. So why wouldn't you do it, right? So now let's kind of look at some of the drawbacks. So I just mentioned quite a few pros for adding images, and in general, you definitely do want to put images in your posts. But I'm going to kind of go over some of the drawbacks as well. So one big drawback to adding images is that it takes a lot of time. So if I'm writing an article myself, I could probably write 1,000-word post, sometimes in 30 minutes, sometimes 45, whatever. But then I go to add images and start to optimize the post. I'm going to take just as long to do all that other stuff. it might take me another 15 minutes to find good images and optimize them, get them on the site, put them exactly where I want them, where I think it breaks up the text really nicely, and so on. That's a huge chunk of time that you're using to add images to your post. So you really want to make sure that those images are worth your time. Another drawback is that images can be really expensive. So in a perfect world, you're going to use your own images, but a lot of times that's just not realistic. So depending what you're writing about, especially if you're in a niche that you aren't too familiar with, you're just not going to have enough pictures to put on the site that are pictures that you took yourself. So in that case, what you have to do is either use free images from places like pixabay.com or pexels.com, or you can purchase images from sites like iStock, 123RF, and so on. So the problem with those free sites, because you can definitely use those free sites. We used to do that, but we stopped doing it a long time ago. Free sites, the selection is just not very good, and the quality is not going to be as good either, right? And there's other people using those same images, and that's a big one, especially when you're trying to rank for a Google image search. You don't want to be using the same image as somebody else. If you're trying to create pins or get shared on social networks, you don't want to be using the same images as somebody else either. So ideally, you want to use your own images or use paid images, which is going to give you a much better selection of high quality images that aren't used by as many people. But of course, the problem with paid images is that they're very, very expensive. So if you're paying for paid images in bulk, getting quite a few, like hundreds every single month, it's still going to cost you quite a bit. You're going to be paying maybe like 15 cents per image or something like that. Now, if you only need a few images at a time, or you just can't afford to buy that many images at once, it's going to cost you a lot more per image. You could be spending, $3 or $4 per image. So as you can imagine, that adds up really, really fast. That's a big drawback of adding images to your site. And the last one I'm going to mention as far as drawbacks is that images can actually significantly slow down your site. And this is, of course, if you're not optimizing your images properly. So resizing, lowering the quality, and lazy loading. If you're doing those things, you'll be okay. But a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, they don't know how to optimize their images. And adding a bunch of images to your posts actually makes your site a lot slower. And if your site's slower, people are going to bounce a lot more often. So that's another big drawback as well. So those are some of the pros and cons, in my opinion at least, of adding images to your posts. So now let's just kind of talk about what we like to do instead, or what we like to do to kind of find that balance, I should say. So images are very, very important, and like I said, in most cases you do want to add images to your posts, but there are some major drawbacks. So what we do to try to find that balance is we always add one image to every single article. That's the featured image. That one, in my opinion, you should not be skipping. Some people do. So the featured image is the one that's going to show up at the very top of a post when you open it up. In my opinion, that's probably the most important one. You want something that's going to grab that user's attention and get them to keep going down the page. But aside from that, we actually do not add any other images to our posts on day one when we post our articles. What we do instead is we actually give all of our posts time to rank before we add any more images. So by doing that, we don't get those drawbacks like wasting our time or wasting our money. That third drawback, as far as site speed, we optimize our images, so that's not as big of a concern for us. But we're not wasting our time or money by adding images right away. So we might give an article 3 months, 6 months, sometimes longer, kind of depends on the age of your site, to start ranking. And then once we determine whether or not that article is performing well in Google search, that's when we decide whether or not we're going to invest more of our time and money into that article. So if we do start to see a trickle of traffic to a post, that's when we're going to go back and add more images to that post. And we'll do other things as well. We'll start adding internal links, external links, making sure that that image or that post is optimized as possible. So if that article is not getting any traffic at all, like not even a trickle of traffic, then we actually just leave it alone. So the way we look at it is, why should you waste your time on something that's not going to return anything to you? Why spend any time, why spend any money on articles that are not going to perform at all? Because it doesn't matter how good you are at keyword research, you're always going to have some losers, right? So that's kind of how we approach it. So there's other people out there that'll actually tell you to do the opposite. And I'm not saying that either strategy is better than the other. Some people like to focus on the losers to make those losers better. And I can completely understand that. We take the opposite approach. We say we're going to focus on the winners instead. We've got articles that are performing well, so let's make them really perform well. Make sure all the visitors that are coming to those articles are really happy with them. If we have articles that are not performing well, we're not going to waste our time on them. And in our case, it's because we're posting so much content, we can't hit every single article, right? We post about 100 articles every single month, so we're not going to try to optimize 100 articles every single month. We're going to pick the top 20% or top 30% or whatever and focus on those instead. So that's the strategy that we use. Like I said, images are super important. You definitely want to add them to your site, to your articles as much as possible. If you have more time on your hands, if money's not a concern, whatever, I mean, add them to every single article, especially early on when you're not posting quite as frequently. It's definitely important to add those images. But if you start getting to the point where you're starting to scale up, you kind of have to make decisions on what you want to focus on. A lot of times it makes sense to just kind of, do the bare minimum, get the article posted out there. When it starts performing, that's when you can start making decisions. So that's what we do. As far as the number of images that we put in a post, we like to do 3 to 4 images per 1,000 words. Now that would just be on a general info post, but it's not going to apply to things like recipes or tutorials. So if you have a recipe or tutorial, you're probably going to need a lot more images to really have that impact on the user, right? So if you have a recipe or anything that's step by step, you probably want an image for just about every single step in that post. So you have to keep that in mind as well. The type of article is going to drive the number of images that you put in there. But if it's just a general info post, then we're probably going to have 3 or 4 per 1,000 words. Sometimes more, but it really just depends. How many headings do you have in the article? Where do those headings fall? Where does it really make sense to put an image? Because sometimes you'll have some paragraph that just really needs an image or whatever, so you might put one in there. But for the most part, 3 to 4 is what we do. But again, so main point that I want to get across in this video is images are super important. You should add them whenever you can. But if you have to pick and choose, a good strategy is to simply do the bare minimum, which is 1 image per article, just a featured image. Then once your articles have time to perform and tell you whether or not they're going to be winners or losers, then you can decide whether or not you want to put more time into them. So that one's that. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe and thumbs up below. Hit that bell icon if you'll be notified of future posts as well. Head over to passiveincomeunlocked.com. I got a lot of articles over there that I'm posting, 1 per week currently. A lot of that content is not going to be found in these videos and vice versa. So definitely check that out. Thanks as always for watching. I always appreciate it. Keep leaving those comments. I appreciate those as well. So I will see you next time.